Welcome to the Principles of Overlanding. I'm your host, Scott Brady, and for this dispatch, we're going to talk about vehicle selection for overland travel. When selecting a vehicle, we have to start off by asking the how and the where and the who. The how is obviously the way that we want to travel. Do we want to be a little bit more comfortable, which means we're considering something maybe with a camper? Or do we want to be very lightweight, that light and fast, which means maybe we'll consider a motorcycle? We also have to think about where are we going? For example, when we crossed Antarctica, we needed a very specialized vehicle. There was really only one or two solutions that could be effectively employed on that continent. But if we're just crossing a state, or if we're taking mostly roads, we have a much wider selection of vehicles that we could choose. And then we also have to answer the question of who. Who's coming along? Is it just ourselves on a solo journey, or is it an entire family that needs to be considered when we look at the size and the type of vehicle that we select? After we've answered those core questions, we also need to take into consideration our budget. And for this one, I think it's the most important consideration, because it is far too easy to look at a couple swipes of Instagram and think that the vehicle needs to be brand new or very expensive or highly modified. And that's simply not the case. There have been trips around the globe that have been done with the same sedan that the person drove to their workplace just a couple months before. We've also seen some wonderful journeys, like the recreation of the first Overland that Ray Highland and his family did in a 1950s Series 1 Land Rover. We have to look at the opportunities that we lose by spending that money on the vehicle that can no longer be used for fuel and accommodations and food and shipping and border crossings to lengthen our journey. We have to first ask, what trip do we want to go on? What do we want to see in the world? Where do we want to go and for how long? And that will create the foundation for our budget. That way, when we consider we have this pool of money available to us, we spend as much money as possible on the trip itself. Now, there will be certainly individuals that aren't constrained by budget in that way, and they'll buy a brand new vehicle or even an expensive expedition camper, and it doesn't affect the type of journey that they go on. Whereas someone like myself, where I'm trying to be mindful of the money that I spend on a trip, I want to put more emphasis on the experience than on the truck itself. So once we plan out our budget, whatever's left is what we would spend on the vehicle and on modifying that vehicle. We make the trip the priority. Now that we've made a decision about what our budget is for travel, we need to decide on the type of vehicle that we're going to use. Now that can include a motorcycle, traditional SUV, it can include a pickup truck, and it can include a van fully customized for travel, or even an expedition camper. Let's talk first about one of my favorite forms of travel, which is the adventure motorcycle. Now this can be a 200cc motorcycle that just cost a couple $1,000s. People have ridden around the world on Vespas. So we have to remember that sometimes smaller is much better, especially when we get into the developing world. Speeds on the roads are very slow, and that gives us better fuel economy, and the motorcycle is a lot easier to pick up too when we get into the technical terrain. After the motorcycle, we go with the most common choice, which is typically the four-wheel drive wagon. So this would be a Land Cruiser, or a Nissan Patrol, a Jeep Wrangler, for example. There are many different options within the wagon category because it's one of the most popular vehicles sold today. There's upsides to the wagon too, because we get to keep all of our equipment and the occupants out of the weather. It adds that extra layer of safety and security, and it keeps all of our gear within the climate control system as well. Less dust, less vibration, and a lot better comfort for the occupants. But after that, we can look at the pickup. The pickup truck in North America is one of the most popular vehicles sold. And there's good reason for that, because you typically end up with a lot more payload, and you can also end up with a lot more space for your stuff. The pickup truck can also be used to attach a camper system to it as well. It could be a simple pop-up, or it could be a fully enclosed camper system. The pickups oftentimes also have heavier duty drive lines, so they can take larger diameter tires, and they can be more durable over the long haul. After that, we're looking at the customized all-wheel drive vans. So this would be like a Mercedes Sprinter, for example. And these are very popular because you get even more space than a wagon, and they can be fully outfitted to be your home away from home. And the last option, which is always the most expensive, is a fully enclosed and customized expedition camper. Now on the surface, they are definitely the most expensive initial investment, but you gain the advantage of being able to sleep inside that vehicle every single night. So your total cost of accommodation and oftentimes food can drop along with that. They also give you that sense of having your home with you at every turn. And many travelers really enjoy that for the longer journeys. With our choice for type of vehicle out of the way, we now need to consider within that category, which of the vehicles are we going to choose? If you were just to look at SUVs alone, there are dozens of options. Same with adventure motorcycles and certainly pickups. So within those categories, we need to decide what is most important to us. Or oftentimes, if we want everything to work well, that will require an additional investment. But the first thing that we need to consider as remote travelers is reliability. Now there's a counterpoint to that, which we'll talk about in a second, but we oftentimes look for reliable vehicles because we don't want to break down in the middle of nowhere. We don't want our trip interrupted by those unexpected events. But the counterpoint to that is, does the person that leaves with a less reliable vehicle and then repair it often along the way and engage with locals and use local shops and have to fix and work on their own vehicle and overcome problems, are they actually having any less of an adventure? I would argue that they're actually having more of an adventure. So I think the reliability decision really depends on the traveler. If the person is maybe a little more anxious and they're worried about breaking down, then they should try to buy the most reliable vehicle that they can. Whereas if the person is used to that and they maybe like a particular brand that's known for reliability issues, then they just make that part of the adventure. It becomes part of the journey. The next consideration is durability. Now this might arguably be the most important consideration. So what's the difference between reliability and durability? Well, reliability means that you don't have to fix it very often. You don't have to service it very often. Durability means the strength of the frame, the ruggedness of the driveline, the weight capacity of the axles, the size of the bearings, the things that even if you have to do a little bit of repairs here and then, you don't ever have to really replace those major components on a journey. That's durability. With reliability and durability considered, we next need to look at capacity. Capacity isn't just payload. It's actually payload plus the available space to carry our equipment or the number of passengers that we're bringing along. This is highly dependent upon our needs for the trip. If we're crossing the Sahara or the empty quarter, we need a lot of capacity for fuel and water and other supplies. Whereas maybe it's a family trip across Eurasia, where we're not bringing along fuel and a bunch of extra water, but we need space and payload available for the people that we're bringing with us. The same even applies for a motorcycle. Some of the lightweight motorcycles have very low payload capacities, or for example, the back half of the frame member may not be able to support a heavy travel load. So we need to make sure that whatever vehicle we pick, it has the capacity that we need to achieve our goal. Our last consideration is capability. Now, interestingly enough, most people tend to put that at the beginning of the list. But the reality is, as drivers, the more training that we get and the more experience that we get in the field, the more we realize stock vehicle capability is almost always sufficient. But capability still is a consideration, and it's dependent upon where we want to go. If we want to cross the Greenland ice sheet, a vehicle needs to be very capable in order to do so. If our goal is to do a long-distance backcountry route through the deserts of Utah, where it's very remote and very rugged, we want to have a vehicle that has the capability to get us to the other side. So capability is a consideration, but it's really dependent upon what we want to do. Otherwise, we're better off spending that money on fuel and tacos. The most important principle when it comes to vehicle selection for overland travel is to remember, it's about the journey, not about the truck.